Hello, this is Jim Masters here from CityLife International Church, and welcome to our CityLife TalkTime. I'm here with Ian Christensen, who is a person who has ministered on prayer up and down the country of the UK and around the world, and he's just ministered in our convention 2024, and we were so delighted on the message that he gave on the Friday, the Saturday and the Sunday. And I'm going to be, like I did before on our series, on our TV series, we're going to ask him a few questions because we just want to know the man himself. Most ministers, when they're on the stage, we get to know the ministry, but to know the man themselves is always a delight. So, Ian, welcome to CityLife International Church.
Thank you.
Just tell us a little bit of how you came into the ministry.
All right. I had a Catholic background, and growing up as a boy, I always felt the call of God on my life in boarding school. And in my teenage years, I kind of pushed God away because as a Catholic, the only way you could be a minister was to become a priest. So you couldn't get married. So I was running away from God in my teenage years, in my early 20s. I was a tennis player playing on the circuit. And then eventually, when I went through a very difficult period in my life, suffering with depression and insomnia, I began to seek for God. A long story short, I started going to Christian meetings, and I gave my life to Christ. God healed me of depression and insomnia and suicidal tendencies. And then that call that was there in my boyhood came back. And I felt a need to go and study. So I went and studied the theology for a few years, 2 years here in one place and 1 year another. And then the Lord opened up for me to go into the ministry and to be a pastor. He opened the doors. Okay. He actually called me on a 21-day fast.
Wow, okay.
And I thought, why am I fasting? But when I did it, shortly after that, I was invited to preach in a church. They asked me to be their pastor. And now I've been there 44 years.
Wow, okay. So in those 44 years, I mean, it's a long time in ministry. What were the main challenges as a senior leader of a church, a thriving church? What can you bring anything out, a few things?
In the early years, the big challenge was to see your church grow, because we started with 12 people. And growth was very small, very gradual, and not a lot was happening. But for me, what changed everything was when God began to speak to me about prayer and teach me about prayer. And I began to implement a prayer life. And when I began to spend serious time in prayer, which came out of a revelation of what happens when you pray and what doesn't happen when you don't pray, out of that, then things started happening.
Right.
The church started growing, people started joining, we saw people being healed and their lives changed. So I would say developing a prayer life was a key for change in certain areas of my life, in certain seasons of my life.
Wow, okay. Now, I know that you have transitioned now. You're still a pastor in your church, but you have transitioned into more an itinerant kind of preaching, going to churches and ministering and things like that. What are you hoping that your ministry will bring to other churches, and what do you want to equip other churches with?
Yeah, I particularly have a burden for young pastors and small churches. There's a lot. The majority of churches in Britain are small. By small, I mean many under 50, many under 70. And the pastors long for their churches to grow. So I have a burden to mentor pastors, to tell them, if you implement a strong prayer and fasting and evangelism, reaching out to the lost, your church will grow. I was speaking to a young pastor, and I said, when's your prayer meeting? He said, we don't have one. And I thought, whoa, a church without a prayer meeting is like a building without a roof, And so this same pastor, he started praying, he started fasting. He's got someone teach on evangelism, and his church is growing, and people are starting to come and get saved.
Wow.
But it's such a small, just a little bit of advice, a response. So I have a burden for young pastors, smaller churches, to help them to grow in every respect.
Okay. And so your ministry that is obviously advancing into this itinerary kind of preaching and teaching. So how do you how would people get hold of you if they wanted to get hold of you to come to their church and to speak?
Yeah, I'm still based at my church, where I've stepped back, and I'm still a pastor, New Life Christian Center in Wembley. And actually, if anyone Googles Pastor Ian Christensen, the
Right.
website comes up in our
Okay.
church, and they can phone the office and contact me. I'm available to minister where the Lord leads me,
Right.
and I want to bear fruit even as I get older.
Fantastic, brilliant. Well, we were so delighted for Ian to minister to us in our convention. Also, we have had 2 people come to Christ this weekend, and some people have also renewed their faith in Jesus Christ. So I thank Ian for coming for this weekend, and we pray that God will continue to bless his ministry. And we thank you for your input, because we know from now on our church will be a different church and a different wine skin to what it was before he came. Bless you.